Welcome to episode 1 of The Old Doctor Who Show with Dan and Eric, January 2015.
The Aztecs.
Go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine.
You couldn't control my mind before, and you certainly can't control it now.
Would you like a jelly, dear?
The TARDIS, when working properly, is capable of many amazing things.
Reverse the polarity of the neutron flows, and the TARDIS would be free of the force field.
Well, the TARDIS is more than a machine. It's like a person, you see.
The resulting reaction described it. Are you ready?
Alright, welcome to our first episode. My name is Eric Grissom. I am your co-host.
And I'm Dan Johnson, the other co-host.
Two co-hosts, because when we do co-hosts, we put the co in co-hosts for fun and prizes. We're going to be covering Classic Who. Whatever, I guess, Dan, we're currently just going to pick what's on Netflix.
Yeah, to make it easiest for people, let's just concentrate on what Netflix has streaming for folks. What's nice about that is there's a limited number of them. So we're not going to do an entire 50 years worth of podcasts.
Right, and we're going to do one a month, so if you want to watch along with us, it's impossible, because I'd have you arrested if I get any of you creepos, like, looking in the back window while I'm watching, because then it would be too hard. We would have to coordinate. We'd all have to be on Google Calendar. Or that's what the kids
We're just going to do a massive hangout, a Google Hangout.
It's a huge hangout.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll do one a month because we're lazy and we have other stuff that we have to do.
I have nothing going on, and I look forward to this for 30 days every month.
Just Dan gets back in the box and waits for the signal. I put on the Doctor Who signal, and then we'll just review the episode. And if that's something you'd be into, it would be cool. For me, like, we're both Doctor Who fans. I've seen probably more of the old Classic Who stuff than Dan. I think that's safe
without
to
a
say.
doubt. Yeah, without a doubt.
I also have a number of ones that I own that maybe we'll cover, because I don't think, like, there's like Pyramids of Mars and there's like a lot of Tom Baker stuff that I like that I don't think is on Netflix, but we'll get to that when we get to it.
Yeah. Hey, so when did you start watching Who? I mean, did you start with, like, Classic Who? Or?
This is like most of my when did you start this was like being 8 years old and being at my dad's house and turn on channel 36. Sometimes it was naked women, and sometimes it was Doctor Who. And he's not even a Doctor Who. He would just find something weird and yell, "Turn on 48!" Didn't matter what you were doing, you had to just and turn it on. And I remember it was Tom Baker, so that was my first sort of exposure. Yeah. And honestly, it was the theme song was just something about it. It was like the most amazing theme song, and especially the end credits for the Baker stuff, where it's that, like, swirling white,
hey, save that for future episodes. Save it for future episodes. Okay?
I will save it.
Yet. We're not there yet.
But that was it. And, like, I just immediately, like, the idea of, it's just so absurd, the TARDIS, and it looks like a phone booth, and being really into Doctor Who then, and everybody with Star Wars and Star Trek, like, that's like your own level of sort of weirdness. It was like there's like, it was either Star Wars or Star Trek. No, there was a third option. Yeah, and that guy's
you could endlessly debate that over a game of D&D. Just which
that's gonna But yeah, that for me, that was it. So that, and then the fact that when it came back, and then I'd sort of lost. I didn't lose interest. I always sort of liked it. But it was very hard to watch the show, too. It was like, it would be never be on. And then when they rebooted the show, which I still consider new, but I guess now it's old, with the Russell T. Davies Rose episode and everything, that was, like, super exciting. And then I was back pretty much on board. What about you?
Yeah, I remember my brother watching it. I have a brother who's 7 years older than me, so he was pretty into it. And it was the mid-'70s, so it was definitely Tom Baker. I remember seeing a couple episodes and thinking, boy, this looks like shit. And I was a little kid. I mean, I was little, and I thought, wow, this is just weird.
Right, and then you hit your switchblade comb and just comb back.
It's just out of it's like later, loser. I'm out of here. No, but I was a super, super nerdy kid, and it didn't really grab me because I didn't know what was going on. There was just too much, and like you said, you could never catch it. So maybe it was on PBS someday, and then it wouldn't be there for weeks, and you wouldn't even be able to catch it. Yeah. So I missed all of that, but I was super into Star Trek and Star Wars, of course, because I'm a red-blooded American. I was born in the 70s. But I think when the reboot came around, I think it was you that actually told me about it.
That's possible.
I think it's quite likely, actually.
I know this is a Doctor Who podcast, but I've never actually seen Star Trek. I just want to throw that out there.
Wait, what?
It's weird, yeah. People well, actually, it's not true because not that long ago.
You can't be alive in America now.
I saw where bits and pieces of it on TV. I actually watched some of the original William Shatner stuff within the last year because it was on Netflix, and I saw a couple episodes and I loved it. I thought it was really cool, but I've never seen the Next Generation.
Oh my god.
I don't know. It for whatever reason it never connected with me.
Yeah,
I loved Star Wars and Doctor Who, as I mentioned, but I don't know. But anyway, save that for the Star Trek podcast.
That's super weird. I don't even know you. What's going on?
I know it's very strange. You would think I would like it.
I didn't really like I remember watching the Shatner ones back when I was little because that's all there was, and they would come on repeats and I'd watch them. But I didn't really like them a lot. I liked the genre, so I watched it. And then I loved the Next Generation when it came on, and I watched all of them. So Next Generation, DS9, Voyager, Enterprise, I watched all of them.
Nice.
Horrible.
But to bring it back to Who, the other thing that I really liked about Classic Who, which is also why I really like comic books, is when you would watch them, it was so random. Again, you're waiting for your dad to yell, is it going to be two women kissing, and why does that make me feel strange? Or it was going to be part 3, because the way for anyone that's not familiar with the Classic Who episodes, they're not standalone single episodes or even a season. I mean, they are, but generally it's a 4 or 6 part episode.
Yeah,
that's a serial, and so you would get part 3 and not know, but there was always this sense that there was this huge universe before that episode and a huge one after. If when you would get comic books, you would randomly find them on spinner racks, and it would be Spider-Man 300 and something, and what came before this and what came after. And
I think the difference with a comic like that is, at least with a Spider-Man or a Superman, you can just jump in because you're kind of stewing in pop culture. You can kind of pick it up. Even if you don't know exactly what's happening, you missed a piece. I think with Who, it's harder because, like you said, it's serials. You don't get the standard Monster of the Week like you get now in this and other shows, like Buffy or whatever. You'll get an overall arc, but typically it's kind of a one-shot that in some way maybe ties together, and I think we get that a lot in the current Who. For me, though, I think the other thing that makes it really hard is I'm a completionist in terms of story. So I want to know every little bit. If I start watching a show and it's 5 minutes, I miss the first 5 minutes, even if nothing happened, I'm not going to watch it until I can catch it from the very beginning.
Right, you burn your house down.
Yeah, I will murder anyone that's going to talk about it.
I can't live here anymore. Everything I believe is a lie.
So it was great for the Who reboot. I was able to catch it from a good starting point and didn't necessarily need all the background. Of course, I read everything I could on the internet to kind of get all these little, I guess they're not Easter eggs because they're there for people who know this stuff, but it's just more enhancements. You don't need it to enjoy the show, but you get more out of it if you know the backstory.
Right.
But so for me, New Who is great. I've watched every episode through the current season at least 3 or 4 times. I mean, every I just rewatched all of the reboot up through Capaldi.
You've definitely
in the past 2 months.
You've definitely rewatched it more than I have. I mean, I've seen every episode, and sometimes I'll rewatch stuff, but I often will talk to you, and you're like, I just watched season 3 for the 5th time. And
for those of you listening to the podcast, that wasn't me. That was Eric doing an impression of. I know it sounds
but it's uncanny. It's almost like you're also here again.
I'm the third co-host. I am the. No. So for me, I have my favorites. My favorite parts of Who. And that's why I'm interested to see how, going back and watching Classic Who, where some of these tropes are coming from, where these continuing stories and references from the current iteration, did they come from something back in the past? And since we only have 18 story arcs to deal with, we might not get a lot of that. But just kind of interested to see. And to see just how the Doctor's changed over the years. Because now, especially with Capaldi coming in and kind of flipping the whole idea of the Doctor around again, it's kind of interesting to see where it came from.
All right, with that said, should we jump in?
Yeah, let's do it.
We failed.
Yes, we did. We had to.
What's the point of traveling through time and space? We can't change anything. Nothing. The Toxel had to win.
Yes.
And the one man I had respect for, I deceived. Poor Ortlock. I gave him false hope. And in the end, he lost his faith.
He found another faith. A better. And that's the good you've done. You failed to save a civilization, but at least you helped one man.
So we are starting with the Aztecs. This is a story arc in 4 parts. It is the sixth story arc in the original series.
Yep. So season 1, 1964.
Yep.
Written by John Lucarati. I hope I got your name right, John, who's probably no longer with us.
Right in if it wasn't right.
John, if you're listening, I'm so sorry, man.
Yep.
And then directed by John Crockett.
Sure. Of Crockett and Tubbs fame.
Yes. And one thing I'll just start before we actually get into the episode. This is a 4-part story, as you said. And what I liked is each part had its own title. And I don't know when they stopped doing that, because the later classic ones... The later classic ones that you'll get like, Hand of Doom Part 1, Hand of Doom Part 2, Hand of Doom Part 3.
Oh, later ones, later in the classic series, you mean?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
So this one is like Temple of Evil, Warriors of Death is the second part. I like that a lot. And in the newer ones, they've done that too.
In the newer ones, they just do it by episode title. They don't actually name the arcs, though. So it's kind of a different thing going on. They don't say, this is a 2-parter, and the overall name of the arc is this, and then each episode, it's just the episode names. So you kind of refer to them in the current Who, based on those 2 episode names, or whatever they happen. Anyway, hey, let's ramble some more. So
you want to just jump in and tell me what you thought of this?
Yeah, I mean, we could do a quick kind of catch us up to where we start on this.
Okay.
So we're starting with the original Doctor, William Hartnell. We start off with 2 companions, and then a third traveler. So we have the Doctor and his granddaughter, Susan.
Yes, Susan.
Who are both Time Lords. I'm guessing this is kind of things we're missing.
Yeah, it is very strange. Like that's her grandfather. She's human.
Is she?
I think so. I mean, well, I could be wrong. We'll have to definitely do research.
This is the speculative Doctor Who podcast. But no, from what I've read in some of the parts, the Doctor makes reference to the 2 of them being rogues and without the protection of their home and their race. So I think they are actually both Gallifreyan. But that's not clear. It's super not clear at all, which makes this really fun to jump in without having all the stories to watch. Yeah,
I will definitely say I'm not sure. I was always under the impression that she was human and
like an adopted granddaughter, like quote unquote.
I guess she would be half Gallifreyan as opposed to full Gallifreyan. So he came down and did the business. But again,
I don't think that's the case because that's disgusting.
Not really. Not with 2 people love each other, Dan. They can do the business. There's nothing wrong with that.
Intimacy is disgusting.
But yeah, so I will. I'm going to take your word for it, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, you're taking the internet's word for it, and the internet can't lie.
Oh.
So the first story arc is The Unearthly Child, where we meet the other 2 companions who are going to join the Doctor on this first series. 2 teachers at the Coal Hill School, where Susan attends school. We have Barbara, who's a history teacher, and apparently just a history savant. She kind of knows everything about all of history, which is kind of great. And then there is Ian, who is I forget.
The heavy. The good when you need a guy to fight another guy, bring in Ian. It's awesome because he does not. He's not look like he's going to be fighting in an arena.
Nope.
He's going to be doing your taxes or something, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm fine. What are we fighting to the death? We fighting to the death, guys? All right, I'm cool. I'm in."
Yep. So the doctor tries to whatever. I'm not going to do a recap of all the stuff up to here, but at the beginning of it, apparently, Doctor's pretty much a shit. He is super mean and grudgingly takes Barbara and Ian with them through space and time. Here's an interesting thing I read that I didn't actually know. So we all know that the chameleon circuit is stuck. So it looks like the police box is stuck in 1964 or 63. It's always going to look like that. The other thing that's stuck in the original series through the first two seasons, first two Doctors, is the time-o-meter. The Eurometer is stuck. So he actually has no control over where he's going to go.
Yeah, so they're randomly popping up at different times. You mentioned, like, why are they there? And I think in that same article that you're referring to, he can't get them off the ship because they can't get back home.
That's right. Yeah. So it was much less a like the current Doctors will pick a companion and say, "Come with me," because he thinks they're interesting, or that he just wants to reward them for something. Where we have these kind of one-time companions. Right. This time they're just kind of stuck with him, and he doesn't really seem to like it at all, which is awesome.
Before we jump into the companions, just a really quick recap. So they end up in the Aztecs, ancient Mexico. Barbara, one of the companions, picks up a bracelet or something. She gets mistaken for a god. Mm-hmm. And basically, as will happen if you the proper jewelry, and you can really change your whole persona.
Run an empire. It's amazing.
Yes, and then there's sort of like the bad, heavy, sadistic character named Texacodal. I can't remember his name. It's Tiacho, whatever. He becomes suspicious that maybe she isn't a god, and that's basically where they find themselves. They're trapped here. They got to get out. Everyone thinks they're a god. They're committing human sacrifices and in order to make it rain. Yep. And that's basically the adventure. It had a much more ensemble feel, where each one of them was just as important. Whereas, like, there's certain moments that Doctor just goes in the garden and he's hanging out with that woman, Kamika, where his role is almost, not as important as it normally is in some of the other episodes.
Yeah, I think that's true. They each get their own thing to do, except for Susan. Susan, for a lot of it, is pretty much doing nothing.
Hanging around. Yeah,
she's hanging around. She's getting her Susie Homemaker guide. She has to take a little test on what a good wife is supposed to do, because it was very weird. It was super weird.
If we get back up to when they first land there, my personal favorite part is like when they're like, "Hey, we must be in Mexico," and then nobody is Mexican. Like all the actors, just like clearly we're in Mexico because we're surrounded by English actors. Playing Mexicans.
English overactors.
Everyone also seems drunk. I don't know if that's true, but a lot of the people on set, I like the one high priest or whatever. I think maybe he had a couple of drinks prior.
Okay, all right. Well, let's talk about these characters. So we have the high priest of sacrifice, Loxol, or whatever his name was. It's really hard. I mean, there's a lot of T's, a lot of L's, and a lot of X's.
Yeah, Titoxl, Tioxl, right? And Tioxl. So he's. Yep, and then there's the good priest.
Wait. No, let's not gloss over this guy, because his acting style is all in the shoulders. Yeah. You got to keep your head bowed and low, and shoulder around ear level. Just one. The other shoulder can do whatever it wants, but that one shoulder has to be at ear level, and that's how you're going to get the real sinister vibe coming out of him. He can tear up some scenery with his words.
Yes.
Boy.
He also has that very cool, like, almost black metal-y paint over his mouth.
Oh, it's super not distracting. It's completely engaging. He looks like one of the hyenas from The Lion King.
Yes, or he's just devoured a jelly donut of some kind, and he's just ready to.
And he's the high priest, and no one wants to say anything. They're not going to make him embarrassed. He's good.
He is the. I forget what his role is, but the high priest is that other guy, right? That other guy's like the religious leader.
There's several high priests. There's the high priest of sacrifice. This guy's the high priest of sacrifice. Then there's the high priest of knowledge, who is Atlok.
Right, and he's sort of the good.
Yeah, he's the one that
who's been drinking, I think.
He's the one who's complete. Oh, he's the drinker. Yeah.
That's the guy I think that maybe. I'm not saying that he did. I'm just saying maybe lunch was a little bit liquidy that day.
He brought his own from home in a flask. Yeah, so he's the guy that kind of believes that Babs.
I also have to say, since this is allegedly. Sure. This is what I have heard. I don't think it's true.
Nope.
But go on.
This is we don't want his estate coming after us.
Exactly.
This is for all of our podcast money. So, but he's the one that believes that Barbara is the incarnation of Yetaxa, the goddess. So he's on her side for most of the time. Then we have Ixta, who is this rival warriors. They have to try to figure out who's going to lead their army, because I guess that has to happen right now. So, and then
you're also missing Kameka, right? The woman, who has sort of like a bit of almost a romance with the doctor. Yeah, I mean they get married via hot chocolate or something.
Yeah, traditional hot chocolate marriage.
I liked her character a lot, and I liked all the moments with her and William Hartnell.
And the Doctor, yeah. I mean, from the clips that I've seen of the Doctor up to this point, especially in the first couple of episodes, because a lot of this stuff you can actually find clips. You might not be able to see the whole episode unless you buy the DVD or whatever. But he's just really surly, which, you know, I have my whole Capaldi thing that we strongly disagree on. But I think that it's that sort of surly Doctor. But in this case, when you see him, he's a lot softer than he was in those first few episodes. Yeah, so especially with Kamika, you could see this whole, even though he unintentionally gets engaged to her over hot chocolate, he should have known what he was doing. You give a woman some hot chocolate and shit's going to go down. But even with Barbara, there's a point where he's yelling at Barbara about her wanting to stop this whole human sacrifice thing. She finds it morally horrible. She thinks it's her duty to try to change history because, you know, she's traveling through space and time. Why would you not do that? Right. But the Doctor yells at her in this very, you can't disrupt the Prime Directive sort of thing. But once she starts sobbing, even just a little bit, he completely softens and is like, oh, no, I'm sorry. It was my fault. So he's definitely not as prickly as he was, but he's definitely a little more secretive than other Doctors, maybe. I mean, I guess they all kind of do that a little bit. The Doctor lies. The Doctor lies is a theme, but...
Yep, and I will say for me, too, this is the only episode of a William Hartnell story that I've ever seen. I mean, in Earthly Child, you see clips of that. I've certainly seen clips of that and whatever. But to me, like, this is really all I have, and this is all that's available, I think, on Netflix. Right? The next one we're going into is So I do hear that, but I mean, as he is short with people and direct, he's also sort of endearing too in a crotchety old grandfather way.
Yeah. I think that they weren't entirely sure. In fact, I'm sure they weren't entirely sure what they wanted to do with the character yet.
Can we talk, too, about... I mean, you mentioned watching Doctor Who and the sets, and people always talk about the sets.
You know what? They weren't bad.
They're great. The thing that people don't talk about is so much of the... what I love is it's one take and we're all going home, guys. And it doesn't matter if we don't say the lines right, because you're just going to say the sentence again.
Yep.
Did you put the word in front of the other? That's no problem. Just keep saying the sentence again. Every scene is like Philip Baker Hall fainting in the Magnolia scene, like where he's like every actor is basically delivering their lines like that. Yep. Or when the cameras push in and they go, "Hey, we're going to hit something on a push." That's fine.
That's totally fine.
Which is very charming.
Yeah, people do talk about how, and I even mentioned at the beginning, but how bad the sets are not actually that bad. What it is a very stage acting style. You get a lot of single tracking shots Very, very little editing, and you can tell everything's being done in sort of one take. So you have a single camera following the Doctor. There's one scene where the Doctor is going into the temple. The bad high priest is watching him. Barbara's supposed to be alone. No one's supposed to talk to her because they're going to test her or something. And Doctor sneaks in. That whole time, the camera kind of moves around the set between columns, follows him in, and then immediately picks up on another camera. And I just thought it was interesting to see, like, this could have all been done right on the stage in front of a live audience, and it would have worked just as well.
No, it makes sense. I mean, and I'm trying to think of, like, in context to the Twilight Zone. I think the Twilight Zone had already ended, or it just had. That's the end of the 50s and early 60s. So that whole era of television is pretty fascinating. But I mean, overall, what do you think? I mean, I'm going to say for me, I thought this was. I really liked it. I mean, I thought it was a. I love it. The other thing is, like, the Aztecs is something that doesn't get visited a lot in anything. Like, that's such a wonderful part of history that is sort of underdeveloped from a creative sort of story standpoint.
Sure.
That going there I thought was really cool, and I really liked Barbara too as a character. I thought she was very interesting. I felt like you mentioned, like, Susan sort of is there.
She's just kind of there. I'd like to see other episodes to see what her story is and what her personality is, because it's more of just a tag along than anything else. She doesn't have a strong point of view. Where Barbara, she wanted to try to change history because she was morally outraged at what was happening. Ian is a kick-ass street fighter, so he has his own thing going on. This stage combat, by the way, was it was crazy. There's two major fights in the show. The first fight between Eon and Excel, whatever. Yeah. So they're going to fight. It's the one where he gets poisoned and taps his strength. But it is the slowest fight. It's like they're fighting with hugs. It's just hug fighting. It's just, I'm going to hug you until you pass out. So there's that going on. It's a hug of war. But then there's the second one where Ian has put on a guard disguise, and they kind of meet each other, and they're having to fight outside. That one actually used a lot of quick edits. That was actually really interesting because it seemed like it wasn't this all-in-one camera to camera. There was definitely clear edits going on there, which gave it a little more energy and more of a modern fight scene feel than you got in the original one. So anyway, I think at least they had things going on. Susan, I don't really think had much development here. Maybe it occurred in previous episodes. Maybe there just wasn't a lot for her to do in this one. I mean, that happens in current Who as well. Some characters will kind of be left alone.
She leaves, right? Susan is the first to leave. Correct?
That I don't know.
I'm trying to remember because there's that amazing for the 50th anniversary they had the making of Doctor Who, which was wonderful.
Yeah.
And they show that scene right where she's leaving the show because I think she's the actress is done with it, and they have this sort of heartfelt scene. And he says, "I will be back in that whole business."
Oh yes, that's right.
That scene, or is that his end? I can't remember.
I think that's actually his end. I think you're referring to his end.
I'm all confused. I'm confused.
Yeah, I was doing some reading, and listeners, just write in, and we'll read your requests or your emails live on air right now.
Goodbye, Susan.
But,
wait, maybe I'm correct.
Yeah,
maybe I am correct. Goodbye,
Susan.
Susan. That because she falls in love. With the power of the internet.
Sure.
The Dalek invasion of Earth. Susan falls in love with a resistance fighter, and the Doctor decides to leave her on Earth, and he leaves.
So Susan is still on Earth.
Yeah, so she's still with us now.
Still kicking around. I haven't seen her.
That's and then that's I guess he. So anyway,
so
what's your opinion of the episode? Because I sort of rolled all over the place.
No, it's cool. It's cool. My opinion of the episode is it was good because it was interesting. I'd like to see the history and these characters. I got to tell you though, my least favorite Who episodes in general are the history ones. I don't really like the backwards time travel all that much. I mean, of course I love them. I love current Who. Don't get me wrong. Don't get angry at me. But it's
I like the alien space stuff too.
The alien space stuff or future ones definitely are more up my traditional sci-fi alley. So this one was going to be hard regardless because it wasn't kind of in that wheelhouse at all. It was all history. That said, it was definitely good. It was just great to see the history. The overacting was amazing. So yeah, it was It was fun. It was definitely fun because you got to see a couple different sides of the original Doctor.
It's very strange. Yeah, we're saying hello to William Hartnell and goodbye to him in the same episode. All right. Anything you want to add before? Because I think we're good, right?
I think the only other thing I kind of want to talk about.
Easy. Oh, okay.
Is because we're both more well versed in current Who.
Yes.
So how does this compare for you to current Who? Whichever Doctor.
Well, one thing I will say, and it's not related to this episode.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think most people that are going to be listening to this, I mean, of the millions of people listening to this podcast, most of them are going to be familiar with current Who.
Yeah, I think if there's probably very few people that are like, I only deal with the classic Who, bro.
Hey, there are Star Trek.
But with Doctor Who, I don't see that as much. But either way, yeah. How do I think it compares to New Who?
Yeah.
One thing that I do notice, like especially with Stephen Moffat stuff, is I'll see an episode and there's a speech or something in it, and I'm like, that's amazing. Like that's really so well written, and I love it. And then I find out it's like, oh, that was in this old Doctor Who episode, and they're just calling it back. So there's definitely a lot of callbacks in New Who to Old Who. As far as sort of Doctor to Doctor, people talk about Peter Capaldi being more like, Hartnell. I don't really think so. I mean, for me, like Capaldi,
to me, it's the same character. To me, it feels like he's consciously doing a reboot back to 50 years ago. He's doing this Doctor again.
I think that there's definitely channeling that. But his thing for me is he's like one of the funniest Doctors ever.
Really?
I think that's a whole other thing. We could have our modern one. You're terribly wrong, and then eventually you're going to realize it, and you're going to feel awful.
Yep. I'll write a letter of apology.
But yeah, I mean, as far as like the shortness and I've got it in my head, and all you people are idiots, and we got to get this done. That's definitely the Hartnell that you can see in this.
Yeah.
But for me, like there's sort of an element of humor too. With I feel like Capaldi's very much his own.
Yes,
Doctor.
I give you that.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not to say I definitely see these connections, and I think those connections are intentional as an actor that he's doing. But Hartnell is definitely way more crotchety without that sort of humor hook.
Yeah.
I'm only seeing this episode, though, so I feel like I'm also sort of not able to really judge him as a doctor.
Hey, this is the internet. You can judge without any information whatsoever.
But we also covered, like, for all the numerous reasons that these shows are totally different, they weren't designed to be to watch over and over again, or they weren't designed to be something that you would buy in DVD, and they weren't going to be building up these sort of elaborate season cliffhangers where you're going to get a little bit of this back. And I'm getting a little sick of that stuff too, but where it's like you're going to get a little bit of this, a little bit of that at the end, and then it's all going to come together because you have your big bad that
Right, that is the kind of the template for the current
none of that stuff is here. This is like old serial. Here's one story. We're going to tell it in 5 parts. It's going to have every episode 2 ends in some kind of cliffhanger.
Every episode within the arc.
Yes. So you have a week to wait. It's not designed to binge watch. You know what I mean? Like, because when you binge watch these episodes, they seem kind of silly because you get these like sort of super dramatic cliffhangers, and then it starts and you see a bit of the end. So.
Which is actually interesting. I kind of like that. This is like a precursor to previously on Doctor Who. They'll just show like the last 10 seconds of the previous episode as the beginning of the next one, so you kind of catch your place. Oh yeah, that's right. Yep. I think it's a really good point. This wasn't. I mean, it's completely ephemeral. They didn't know how long the show was going to last. They weren't sure what was going to happen with it, and they recorded over so many of the episodes, just reused tapes. So it was never meant to last. You're never meant to, analyze and dissect. And I don't think that was necessarily the culture for pop entertainment in its time, where now people are completely obsessive and can get onto websites and talk about it obsessively in every detail and minutia that about a show. So I think creators now, especially Moffat, try to leave these kind of clues in advance of things that are going to happen. Whether or not they pay off, who knows? I mean, there's the whole example of the TV show Lost, where they were kind of leaving Easter eggs that actually went nowhere because they didn't know what the hell they were doing either. And
there's also no sense of community then. I mean, there certainly is, but it's not like Whereas now you're gonna do a mystery or whatever, and you design these things knowing people are going to be talking about them. You've got
except for the
social
fact
networks.
That this thing took off in a way that probably couldn't happen again because there were so few channels, there's so few shows. When this show became popular, it was all people talked about, and it was popular with kids, it was popular with adults. It became a cultural touchstone for
in England. You mean
for England? Okay,
yeah.
That's right. For the U.S., I mean, it just kind of, I don't even know how it just kind of got over here somehow through PBS and whatever.
Yeah, definitely through PBS, but you would certainly find people, and there was conventions and things like that. But it was like, it's not as you would see an episode of I would see the Aztecs if I would never be talking to you about it.
You'd never see it, and you'd never see it again.
I'd never see it again. And one thing, too, to talk about sort of the different structure parts, I do think they do a pretty good job of, if you happen to tune into part 3 and you missed part 2, of not being totally lost. Like, even with the opening to see the cliffhanger, how it ended before, but I feel like, you would figure it out. In a lot of ways, that's what comic books were like, too, back, that was always a thing with, every issue was going to be somebody's first issue.
No, I think we pretty much covered that as well. I mean, like I said, I think Capaldi is kind of William Hartnell seen through the lens of Tennant and Smith. He's got that humor. I think the softness of Hartnell was his emotional connection, where the part that takes off the edge on Capaldi is the humor.
Yeah, and I think there's some emotional connection, too, with Capaldi, but we'll have the conversation.
Yeah. Maybe one day I'll come around to it.
We will. I think, hey, if we keep doing this podcast like we want to, then we will probably have to do a modern Who episode. Maybe we'll review the whole last season or something.
That mean I have to watch it again. No, I'm looking forward. I'll watch it again.
You should watch it again. All right, so I think that's probably it. So next month, we're going to be watching The Mind Robber. So this episode is going to be airing in January. So every month we're going to do one. Next month is The Mind Robber, which I have not seen at all.
Are you familiar with the next Doctor? So the next is Doctor number 2.
Yeah, Patrick Troughton. I obviously know who he is. But I've not seen this episode. It's the only one that's on Netflix. I have never seen any other episodes of him.
I don't think I've ever really seen a performance by him as the Doctor, except for little flashbacks that they do in the current series. I mean, I know the guy's look and I know his name, but I don't know anything about the tone. Is he the same sort of Doctor?
He's more of like a clown-ish type. Like there's an episode that I think it's on Netflix that we'll cover called The Three Doctors, where you get and he's in that. And he's got, like, the whistle. That's, like, his thing. I don't know. We'll see. Like, it's very strange. But after that, I can't wait, because I love Pertwee. Like, John Pertwee is great. That's sort of where I really hook into classic Who, is like that. Pertwee, Tom Baker, Peter Davison stuff.
I'm looking forward to seeing all the different Doctors. I've only know them glancingly, so this is going to be interesting. All right.
So if you're listening and you want to join us, please watch The Mind Robber. What a great name, too, The Mind Robber. I just love that.
It's a pretty good one,
as a name. So, that's it. So, thanks for listening, and I hope everyone's well. And I guess if you do listen to this, because everybody always says that you're supposed to leave us a rating.
Yep.
Because that means something.
And then comments, probably the filthier the better. I'll give you my mailing address. You can send that to...
send it to dick pics at...
so you can do that.
Yep. All right. Well, it was a lot of fun.
Yep.
I look forward to the next one.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks, everyone.